Hello and welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood.
Welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood, one sculpt at a time. Today we're once again going to the comments and we're going to be sculpting something that you guys suggested, and this one probably is the most suggested that I've gotten, so it's about time that I do it. And so today we're going to be sculpting CatDog. And to start this build off, we're going to need a piece of aluminum foil that I'm going to roll out into a hot dog shape. This is going to help reduce some of the weight so I don't have to use any armature wire. Once I'm happy with this rolled out sausage, I can go ahead and start the inclaying process. I take a flattened out piece of clay that I then tightly roll up. Try to make it as smooth as possible. Did think about giving him some bumps and ridges and make him kind of nasty, but honestly, he's kind of nasty how he is. So we're just gonna keep him that way. Once I had him all tightly wrapped up and smoothed out, we could go ahead and rip off the excess pieces of clay on the ends and smooth those out as well. And that leaves us with this gray glorious glizzy. With the main portion of the body done, we could start on those heads. I start off by bending up the ends. This is going to give us a little bit of a surface to work off of. And then from there, we're just going to start adding on little balls of clay, and really we're just going to be building up the main structure of their heads. I just take a piece of clay that I mash onto that bent up section and then use my dirty phalanges to kind of blend it all together till it's one cohesive piece. And then we can move on to the other side, which is going to be Cat's head, where I do the same process, except I add a piece to the back of that bent up piece, using my fingers once again to blend it all in together until we have one cohesive piece. Now that we got the main structure done, we could really start bringing them to life, starting with Dog. We're going to add a pretty big ball to the end of the nose because this dude's got a honker. Big schnoz alert, let me tell you. Once I got that bad boy fastened to the front of his face, I go ahead and take my ball stylus and kind of give him a little bit more of a snout before I take my ball stylus and drawing a line to help define his jowls. I also use a rubber sculpting tool to kind of help shape that up a little bit more as well. And now we're off to the eyes. Started off with a couple of pre-baked balls of clay that I sliced in half to create these little eyes. Dog, for some reason, has one eye that is slightly smaller, so we're going to make sure we stay true to that. And once I was happy with the position of the eyes, I went ahead and mashed them down to lock them in. Up next, we could start on his lower jaw. Dog also has quite the impressive overbite. So to get this look, I went ahead and pinched off a loaf of clay and applied it to the bottom part of the neck. Then using a ball stylus, I kind of hollow out the center. And then using this prison shanker tool, I went ahead and carved in a smile. And with the mouth finished, we could start working on his little eye. Roll out a really thin piece of tapeworm that I wrap around gingerly. And then using a small ball stylus, I went ahead and poked and prodded it until I got this nasty meat texture. And then I took another thin piece of clay, applied that to the bottom, and kind of smoothed it out. The look I'm going for is kind of like a basset hound's eyes, where it's all droopy and it's honestly nasty, but that's what I'm going for with this small eye, kind of bulging. And with his little eye down, we could go ahead and work on his normal eye. I roll out a thin piece of clay that I lay over the bottom. Then using my X-Acto knife, I slice off the lower lid. Then using that same shanker tool as before, I smooth it all out before doing the same process for the upper lid. And with his eyes done, we could go ahead and work on his snout a little bit. I roll out some pieces of clay before applying it to the end of his snout behind the nose. Then using my X-Acto knife, I kind of slice off the ends, making a taper into the face. This makes it a little bit easier to blend in. And then I take an assortment of sculpting tools and blend it in. His mouth was looking a little too flat, so I went ahead and made these little C-shaped pieces to stick on the corner of his smile. This really just makes his smile pop a little bit more because, you know, he's a happy little guy, ain't he? Once those are all blended in, we could go ahead and start on his ears. Start off with a flattened out piece of clay that I then cut out a rough ear shape with my X-Acto knife before taking that same piece, laying it over top, and then using it as a stencil to cut out a matching ear. I then take those ear shapes and apply them to the side of his face, making sure that they are equal distance apart. And then using the back of my knife, I go ahead and blend that in. And now that I'm satisfied with how the ears came out, we could start on his teeth. I went ahead and made some pre-baked teeth off camera out of some translucent clay. I then take those teeth and gently press them into the back of his mouth. I do add an extra tooth later on, I don't think I filmed it though. I must have lost one in transit or something, but I was missing a tooth, so I had to rebake one. But while it's in the oven baking, I went ahead and did the final detailing on his nose, giving him a couple of nostrils before taking a variety of ball styluses and gently tapping it on the tip of his nose to give it a little bit of texture. And with that, we can move on to Cat. Cat's pretty much going to be getting the exact same treatment that Dog did, so we're going to go ahead and brush through this a little bit faster. Started off by pushing in a couple pre-baked eyeballs, then followed that up with a piece of rolled out clay that I mashed on top and blended all in together to build up his upper eyebrow ridge. Just like Dog, I went ahead and rolled out a ball of clay that I mashed onto the front of his face to make up his nose. Moving along, we went ahead and pinched off a couple loaves of clay that we mashed onto the side of his face. Then using my fingers, I went ahead and formed these little Batman-shaped ears and blended that all in. It was at this point I realized I forgot to give him an upper lip, so I went ahead and popped off his nose. Then I mashed this piece of clay onto his face, giving it almost a duckbill look before reapplying his nose. Now with his nose firmly fastened to his face, we could go on and start on his lower jaw. I pinched off a piece of clay before applying it to the bottom, then I just used my fingers to smooth it all out, blending it all together. I wanted to give him one of those cheesy side smiles. I took my X-Acto knife, cutting some little triangle pieces out before doing the same thing on the other side. To further build out the mouth, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing that we did for Dog. Taking these C-shaped pieces of clay, applying them to the corners of the mouth, then using my ball stylus, I blend that all in. Once I was happy with the shape of the mouth, I went ahead and just added a couple details to the nose, taking my small ball stylus, poking and prodding at the tip of the nose just to give it a little bit of texture. I also took my smallest ball stylus, poking it into the side. I'm going to use this to install some whiskers later, which I actually don't think I filmed, but I did do it. You'll see it in the final. And now on to the teeth. Kind of like Dog's teeth, I went ahead and took some translucent clay, but instead of pre-baking it, I went ahead and mashed it in using a small ball stylus to kind of form it into the corners. Then taking an even smaller ball stylus, I then go ahead and draw in all of his little veneers. And with those little details done, we have Cat and Dog's head finally complete, and we can start on the grueling process of adding in all of those little hairs. To achieve this look, I'm just taking a variety of different size ball styluses and sliding it back and forth to get this little hair texture that you see here. If you guys are liking this video so far, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below of letting me know who you would like me to sculpt next. I've been loving all the suggestions that you guys have been giving, and I'm taking your guys' suggestions as priority, so definitely leave a comment down below if you'd like to see a specific character. And with his hair done, off to the oven for his first bake. Now that he's all baked up, I went ahead and made some pre-drilled holes that I'm going to insert the armature wire that is going to make up his legs. I went ahead and kept the wires a little bit longer than I normally would, just for some cushion for air. It's always easier to make them shorter than it is to make them longer. As for the legs, I'm going to do the same process that I do for most of my legs, taking a bit of liquid Sculpey, applying it to the wire, then using a paintbrush to smear it around. Then take a piece of skin flap, wrapping it around the leg, pinching it off on the back end. Then taking my X-Acto knife, I slice off the excess. And then I just take my finger, sliding it up the pole, smoothing that edge out, and then I go ham with these ball styluses, carving in some fur. Then repeating the same process, I went ahead and did the other 3 legs off camera. And with CatDog's leg sleeves completed, we need to talk about something truly unsettling here. Why does he have human hands? I mean, I get it. He's a cat and a dog fused together. There's really no explanation, no logic, just pure 90s cartoon chaos. But why does he have human hands? I mean, he runs on his fists. He literally runs on his fists. He just curls them up and runs. He plays catch with himself. Anyway, enough of that. As for the hands, all I did was I took a ball of clay, mashed it together, cut off the ends, made little fingers, attached a little piece for the thumb, blend it all together. Now I'm attaching it to the wrist. Sorry for that explanation. I just had to get that off my chest. It's been ruining my childhood for years, and now it's time to ruin yours. Anyway, now that we're done with those waffle stompers, we could go ahead and start adding some unnecessary detail. I kind of wanted to make where his spots are kind of bulge out a little bit, so I went ahead and went around the body, putting on little patches of clay, then blending those all in using the same technique that I used for the rest of the fur, using a ball stylus, sliding it back and forth. This just helps give it a little bit more visual interest in the end. With them all done, we could go ahead and put him in the oven for his final bake. With CatDog back and baked, we could go ahead and give him that flick test for no reason, then we could start on the painting process. For this paint job, I'm using a little bit different paint than I normally use. I'm using Model Color, acrylic colors. The color that I'm using now is called Dark Flesh. Didn't know that was a color, but basically it's just kind of like a burnt orange. I'm really just trying to get a layer of this down. I went ahead and opted out of not using a primer because it tends to get rid of a lot of detail. So I just went ahead and went in raw, I guess. I don't know, that sounded terrible. After I get a good coat of that, I went ahead and mixed that with some orange and a little bit of brown, and I'm gonna go ahead and go over top of that, blending it in just to really get it into the cracks and crevices to make him pop a little bit more. And then I just dab off the excess after I let it sit for a bit. And now that I was happy with how that looked, I went ahead and let it fully dry before going over top of it again with a dry brushing of that initial color with a little bit of added white just to give it a little bit more color variety. And with his fur done, we could go ahead and start on his noses. I'm gonna start with Dog's nose. He gets almost this purplish blue color I mixed up, making sure I give him a good even coat. I like to use thin layers when I'm painting. This helps eliminate brush strokes and clumps. It just makes it a much smoother finish. After I let his nose fully dry, I went over top of it with a dry brushing of a little bit of a lighter version of that same color. Then moving to the bottom of the nose, I take that same blue, add some red to it, and apply that to the bottom. Just gives it a little bit more variety. I also take that reddish blue color and apply it to the inside of his mouth. I really like the way the gray kind of pushes through, so I keep it kind of light there. While I let Dog's nose and mouth dry, go ahead and start on Cat's nose. His nose is quite simple. He just gets an orangish brown color followed by a little bit more of a red tone on the bottom, kind of like how I did for Dog. Now we're on to the eyes. I went ahead off camera, painted the eyeballs white, let that fully dry before applying this red wash. Went a little overboard with Cat's eyes here, but it's alright. I just took a sponge, dabbed off the excess red, and then went over top of it with some watered down white, wet blending it into the corners, making it more cohesive. Once I let that fully dry, we could go ahead and start adding the pupils of his eye. I took my smallest ball stylus, dabbing that in some black paint, and then trying my best to find the center, and failing every step of the way, but that's okay. Kind of like it not perfect. And with his lazy eye done, we could start on the base. For the base, I cut out a 3x6 piece of foam, then covered the top with some game tack, which is basically just really thick glue. Then I shake some static grass on top. I don't have one of those ultra fancy electromatical static grass applicators. I just have a tube, but it works great. Once we have that thing fully coated, we go and flip it upside down, give it a good old shake to get those grass to stand on end, and then we just repeat the process by scooping up that grass, sticking it back in that tube, and flicking it back on. I was just gonna keep it like this, but then I decided I wanted to add that little CatDog sign from the intro video. For this, I'm going to take some coffee stirs and cutting off the ends to make them flat. Then take a pencil, draw in the arrow shape, slicing off those ends as well. Then take a couple small pieces, glue those on the back, then glue on the main stick, and we have ourselves a sign. Went ahead and took the back of my X-Acto knife, scratching along the surface. I wanted it to look like this sign's been outside for a little while, and this helps bring out some of that texture. And then take some wood stain, apply this on the top. You can make this wood stain just by acrylic paint, but I had some lying around, so I went ahead and used that, wiping off the excess so it doesn't soak in too much. And then we could start painting on that CatDog sign. Honestly, there's really not too much going on here. I just took some paint, painted the words CatDog on there, and with all of that done, and a little bit of off-camera assembly, we're onto those glorious JC Penney glamour shots. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below of who you would like to see me sculpt next. I'll see you next time.